بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد, I have returned the trust and the pledge has been taken back. As for my grief, it is forever, and as for my night, it is sleepless, until God chooses for me a place in the abode where you currently reside. Your daughter will inform you about the conspiracy of this ummah and the way that they repressed her. Therefore, inquire from her and press her to tell you about what happened and the circumstances that took place surrounding it. The first of our loudest salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. A second even louder salawat in honor of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. A third with your loudest voices in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. A marriage made in heaven is without a doubt the best way to describe the marriage of Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam to Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Without a doubt, one of the greatest marriages in the history of the religion of Islam was the marriage of these two holy personalities. There have been many great marriages in the history of the religion, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a marriage as ideal and indeed as great as their marriage. For indeed, every single attribute that you would look for in a married couple could be found in the marriage of Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra alayhim as-salam. When a person has couple goals today, without a doubt, one of the couple goals that a person should look up to and a person should aspire to reach is the marriage and the couple goals of these two personalities. Because the reality is that when you examine their marriage, you find that every single thing that a person may go through within their marriage, they go through in theirs. If a person's looking to understand love, look at the marriage of Ali and Fatima. If a person's looking to understand mercy, look at the marriage of Ali and Fatima. If a person's looking for compassion, look at the relationship between Ali and Fatima. If a person's looking for the understanding of trials and tribulations that may take place in a marriage, look at the marriage of Ali and Fatima. If a person's looking for spirituality in a marriage, look at the marriage of Ali and Fatima. If a person's looking for patience in a marriage, look at the marriage of Ali and Fatima. The reality is that the marriage of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is a marriage which is relatable to our lives today. Many times when we examine the Ma'soomeen, you'll find that people will always say, well, I can't relate to them. They are Ma'soom. I'm a normal human being. Reality is, in their marriage, which lasted just under 10 years, they were also going through things which we would go through in the year 2022. It's not like Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam had a couple of angels standing outside their house who were making sure that they faced no difficulties whatsoever. Their marriage had difficulties as well. Their marriage faced envy as well. Their marriage faced people who talked about them as well. Their marriage faced people who conspired against them as well. Reality is that many times when we've examined the marriage of these two, we don't examine it in a way which is relatable to our lives today. Whereas when a person properly examines their marriage, you'll find that every aspect of their marriage is relatable to our lives today. Because today, this particular lecture can affect a number of groups of people. Those who are looking to get married one day can relate to this lecture. Can I truly find love in my life? Is love just a dream? Is it a myth? When you examine their marriage, you can relate to it. Those who are already married, maybe there are certain times where you feel that there's no way your marriage can ever develop. Your marriage, you always feel, has reached a standstill. Again, if you understand their marriage, then it may relate to your life as well. Then there are those who, for example, want to be the best husbands and the best wives. We know very well marriage can all of a sudden turn toxic. All of a sudden, from being happily married, one issue can turn the marriage toxic. How can I look at their difficulties or their trials and their tribulations when I'm facing such things in my life? Should it be automatically a case that I move from marriage to divorce? Or is there a possibility that even those greater than me face difficulties in their marital lives as well? Because if you ask anyone, did Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra alayhim as-salam, did they face any difficulties in their marital life? People will turn around to you and say, no chance, they had the best marriage. Best marriage doesn't mean that you don't go through difficulties. Sometimes the best marriages are the ones where a person has gone through difficulties but come out stronger in those difficulties. Therefore, on the one hand, we find this. On the other hand, there are a number of other concepts that emerge in their marriage. Number one, that these are, for example, cousins. Should cousins get married to each other or not? Number two, for example, the issue of dowry. What was their dowry in their time? And should we still be using the mahar of Fatima for our dowries? Was the mahar of Fatima a great amount at that time? And how does that relate to today's time? That's another issue. A third issue, when we come to their marriage, for example, is understanding the freedom of the female to accept who has proposed for her. Who is it that makes the decision? Is it the father of the girl or the girl who makes the decision? If a proposal does come in, does the father have to tell his daughter, or does the father reject because the father doesn't want the person? That's another issue that emerges. Further than that, how do I achieve spirituality in a marriage? Maybe I've ticked off the 9 to 5 box. We go 2 holidays a year, 3 weddings a year, but there's no spiritual dimension in that marriage. What is the spiritual dimension that I may learn from their marriage as well? Therefore, when a person comes to examine this great marriage, it shouldn't just be looked at that it's great because it's Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra alayhim as-salam. Even they highlighted that any great marriage requires a lot of work, requires a lot of importance being given from both sides. Let us tonight examine the full story of the marriage between these two personalities and understand how their marriage can relate to our lives today. The first issue that emerges in the marriage of Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is a point that is to be made. And that is that true love can definitely happen in one's life. Sometimes we watch these Hollywood films and you think to yourself that there's no way that I'll find true love. I'll probably have to go through some arranged marriage and hopefully try and find love after we've got married to one another. Some put forward the statement, don't marry the girl you love, love the girl that you marry. In reality, the idea for many is that true love comes after marriage. When you come to the story of Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra alayhim salam, you see that in reality it could be called a love story. I know for some, calling their marriage or the marriage of two ma'soomeen a love story is a bit hard to stomach. We'd prefer it to be a bit more formal. But the reality is that there is a love story involved here. Fatima al-Zahra at a young age had seen that Imam Ali alayhi salam was ready to sacrifice himself for his Lord and for his Prophet at every moment. If you look from a young age, what does Fatima witness? She sees Imam Ali alayhi salam from a young age being ready to always have a relationship with his Lord and his Prophet. Ultimately, that's the most attractive thing to her. Why? Because if he fears Allah, then he's going to treat me properly. But if he has no respect for Allah, why would he respect the creation of Allah? When she'd look at Imam Ali alayhi salam, she'd see that Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam was ready to lay down his life for her father. Literally, from a young age, Fatima would see that Imam Ali would tell her father that I'm ready to sleep in your bed. As long as you remain alive, I don't mind sacrificing my life. And that's why the reality of when she falls in love with him happens on that hijrah from Mecca to Medina. Because you know Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa he set out to where? He set out to Medina. He left Imam Ali alayhi salam behind. When he left Imam Ali behind, he gave Imam Ali alayhi salam a couple of responsibilities. The first responsibility that he gave Imam Ali alayhi salam was to return the trusts of those of the Quraysh who had left it with the Prophet. These Quraysh were unbelievable. We don't believe you're a prophet. We actually hate you. We don't mind seeing you dead, but you mind looking after our gold because you're a trustworthy person. Baba, if he's trustworthy, then why not accept his word? If you see a man who's that trustworthy, you call him Sadiq, you call him Amin, you call him trustworthy, and you call him truthful. Accept his word as a prophet. No. But we'll deposit some of our gold with you. We'll deposit some of our belongings with you. These people, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa went out towards the hijrah, you found that these people, what happened with them? Rasulullah said to Imam Ali alayhi salam, that inshallah you are able to return the deposits back to the enemies who tried to kill me. Try and fathom that sentence in your head. Return the deposits back to the enemies who tried to kill me. Imam Ali alayhi salam, therefore, what did he do? Imam went, he returned the deposits back towards the people. The second role Imam Ali had was what? Was that there was a group of ladies who were known as Fawatim, or the Fatimas. Fatima al-Zahra was not the only Fatima living in her time. Another of the famous Fawatim who was living in her time was who? Was Fatima bint Asad, the mother of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And then you had Fatima who was related to Hamza. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa said to Imam Ali, I want you to make sure that the Fawatim, the ladies called Fatima, are brought from Mecca to Medina safely. Fatima al-Zahra at the time, how old was she? Fatima al-Zahra at the time was around 8 years of age. Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, how old was he? Imam was in his early 20s. Imam came to his mother, Fatima bint Asad, and it always helps if your future wife is close to your mother. It bodes well for the future, no doubt. Fatima al-Zahra loved Fatima bint Asad, Imam Ali's mom, because ultimately Abu Talib and Fatima bint Asad were really those who raised Fatima alongside her mother Khadija. So you found that Imam Ali came to his mother Fatima bint Asad. He said to her mom, I'm going to carry you from Mecca to Medina safely. Bring with you Fatima al-Zahra, daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Remember, at that time they're not married. And also Fatima, who's related to my uncle Hamza, the son of Abd al-Muttalib. And I need to take you towards Medina. When Imam Ali went from Mecca to Medina, it's not like today I can book a flight, for example, or I could get on a fast train and go from Mecca to Medina. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam had to go through a very dangerous path. Utbah bin Rabi'a, Abu Sufyan, Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, all of them had sent people to catch Ali ibn Abi Talib and to kill him. Because if you're able to catch Ali, execute Ali, and you're able to take Muhammad's daughter, then Muhammad has a ransom which is in your hands. You can blackmail him. Either you give up your message or we execute your daughter. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam took these ladies. He went from Mecca, he left, and he went towards Medina. On the way, a number of people came to try and kill the Amir. But who can mess with the Amir? At the end of the day, the Amir is a personality that only a coward kills him in his sujood. He has to come in his sujood while the Amir is prostrating and kill him. Mawla made sure that he managed to kill anyone who came in his way. And who was witnessing this? Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Imagine at your young age, you see this man of prowess, this man of unbelievable build, but this man of unbelievable respect as well. That he doesn't look at the female as a commodity. Rather, he knows that nations will be built by these ladies that I carry. So he came, he took the ladies, and he reached Medina. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi would not enter Medina until Imam Ali alayhi salam reached Medina. Without mentioning names, because we don't want to get in trouble on YouTube. Without mentioning names, there was a person in Medina next to the Prophet. He said, why are we entering? The people are waiting for us. Why don't we go in? One of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt makes it clear that when the Prophet said to him, I will not enter until Ali enters, the Imam says that that is when hasad entered the heart of that person. Hasad, when it entered the heart of that person, in terms of his envy to Imam Ali alayhi salam, was that moment that we, me and you, have also had to make it to Medina. Why is it that you have to do everything only when Ali comes? Aren't I with you? So you found that that hasad had affected. But Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, that's where she fell in love with Imam Ali alayhi salam. There's nothing wrong with someone saying, I fell in love with someone or I'm looking for true love. It's perfectly fine. If you end up with an arranged marriage, your mother or your family member or your community finds you somebody, you can get to know them, there's no harm. If, however, you meet somebody or you see somebody from far and you want to get to know them, there's no harm as well. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, what's the proof that she fell in love with Imam Ali alayhi salam? Is that every single time a proposal came, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam's reaction would not be a reaction of pleasure. Someone may ask that you're telling me that when Fatima was being proposed to, how old was she? Fatima al-Zahra was 9, 8 and a half, 9. Remember, there are certain aspects of the lives of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that we cannot necessarily relate to or we cannot follow. I'm not going to come here and sit and say that marrying somebody at that age is applicable in our time at all today. Not at all. But in those days, there was no hoo-ha that was being caused. If you married somebody at 9, it would not be an issue. That's why today when some people come and say that your prophet was a man who married a 9-year-old, you'll see that some of us may be apologetic. Some of us may say, for example, my prophet would never marry a 9-year-old, marries a 14-year-old, 18. Reality is Arabia, other parts of the world, many of them had a certain culture of younger marriages than is acceptable today. Today, of course, there is a change. in the way the world views these things. But at that time, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam was getting people proposing for her from the age of 9. Today, that is not something when we see society saying that this is not something acceptable. Without a doubt, the time changes, the context changes. But every time someone proposed to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, what happened? She would reject. And these weren't simple personalities. These weren't people who were nobodies. These were people who were very well known in society. As in Abu Bakr, the first Khalifa, comes to propose for Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, the Prophet straight away replies to him by saying she's too young. Normally, by the way, when a father tells you she's too young, that normally is a straight rejection that I don't want you to marry her, you know. In our time today, there's two rejections that normally happen. One is when a father says, we did istikhara and it came out bad on the 7th attempt. Because sometimes you'll see that there are some fathers who'll say that, no, I'm sorry, I took an istikhara. He's gone to the Mawlana. First istikhara, good. Mawlana, one more. Good. One more. Good. One more. Good. One more. Bad. Wallah, Mawlana, I was waiting for that. I never wanted him myself. One way is that. Another is when a father may say that I believe that my daughter is too young. Yes? But then you hear the girl got engaged 2 weeks later and you realize that that was a blatant rejection. Sometimes you may see this. When Abu Bakr, the first Khalifa, when he came to propose for Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, the Prophet straight away, according to a hadith, straight away, the Prophet said, she's too young. Some traditions mention that the Prophet went to Fatima to give us an example as well. That your daughter has the right to choose. Don't take that away from her. You may advise as a parent, you may say that, look, I don't know if their family is suitable. I don't know if they're the best for us. That's one angle. But on the other hand, the Prophet does go to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. He says to her, Abu Bakr has proposed. The reply was that Fatima had a face of displeasure. And therefore the Prophet went to the first Khalifa and he said to him that I'm sorry, too young, and she does not want to get married. Then who proposes? Umar ibn al-Khattab proposes. And again the reply is what? Again the reply is that she's too young and that there is a certain displeasure on her face. Abd al-Rahman bin Auf, look how many people have proposed for Fatima. But for Fatima there's only one man she wants to marry. She has absolutely no doubt that this is the man she wants to live the rest of her life with. Abd al-Rahman bin Auf proposes, she doesn't accept until what happens? Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam is too shy to go and propose. And this is something wonderful. There is no problem at all in a man having a certain amount of shyness. Yes? Because in Iraq, when we talk of shyness, we either have someone yastahi or someone may yastahi. We either have someone who is shy like me, or you have somebody who has no shyness whatsoever. You may have somebody who's like, when I propose, everyone should accept me. I am God's gift on earth. How could anyone reject me? Then you have those who are like, wallah, whatever is the qisma masters, they are the best. Whatever is the qisma, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may He choose for me somebody who is good for my life. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen had that shyness where he did not want to go to the Prophet and necessarily say something, even though people were telling him. And notice Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he marries Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, he's in his early 20s. It's an example for us that the younger you get married, the more structure and discipline you have in your life. There's no harm if a person says that I still have not put myself at a level of discipline and structure, But at the end of the day, there is no harm as well, a person marrying in their 20s. You grow together, you build together. Imam Ali could have easily turned around and said that, you know what, I'm not rich enough yet. Why should I propose for someone like Fatima al-Zahra when I don't have much? Others were telling him, Baba Amir al-Mu'mineen. They were telling him, oh Ali, go and propose for her. What are you waiting for? Imam Ali would say, not now, wait, not now. There'd be times that he would come to the Prophet. He'd want to say something until Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam does something wonderful. As a father-in-law, he makes life easy for his future son-in-law. Because father-in-laws can be two types. One, he gives you the worst interview when you come to propose for his daughter. Wallah, I've heard some mad stories in my time, to tell you the truth, of some father-in-laws. I don't know if this is an application for a job at a major bank or to get married. The questions that some ask, some father-in-laws have their right. They want to safeguard their daughter's future. There is no problem whatsoever. But the reality is that sometimes you have to ask yourself, where were you at the age of this boy proposing? Were you somebody with the same financial capability at that age as you do have now? So is it therefore fair for you to expect that that person is that capable right from the beginning? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam notices that Imam Ali wants to propose. He tells him, oh Ali, what is it that's on your mind? Mind you, when you have an email connection to the heavens, it helps when you can tell what's going on. So he says to him, oh Ali, what's on your mind? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I would love to propose for Fatima. And so the Prophet turns around to him and says, so what are you waiting for? Propose for Fatima. He says to him, Ya Rasulullah, I don't have much. What can I offer? The Holy Prophet turns around to him and says, do not worry. Calm down, it's okay. When Imam Ali therefore says, okay, I give my proposal, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi goes to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. He comes to Fatima al-Zahra, he sits with her. He says to her, oh Fatima, Ali the son of Abu Talib has proposed for you in marriage. What is your reply? What did we say before? That in the past there would be signs of displeasure. This time, silence, no displeasure. At that moment, the Holy Prophet said, her silence means her acceptance. And he said to her at that moment, oh Fatima, I am marrying you off? No. Rather, God is the one who has engaged Fatima to Ali. Understand this. Why the others were being rejected? Because Allah was the one who was deciding who she should marry. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, God has engaged Fatima to Ali. What did I say in my Majalis last night? Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, her affairs are in the heavens, not on the earth. Other ladies in Medina, their affairs are on the earth. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, her light is a light that shines before Adam was created. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is someone who the angels communicate with. Therefore, is it exaggerated for a person to expect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be the one who says that, oh Muhammad, marry Fatima to Ali? Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to Fatima al-Zahra, he said, I am marrying you off to the best person in this world and the hereafter. There is none better than Ali ibn Abi Talib in this world and none better than Ali ibn Abi Talib in the hereafter. He is the most righteous individual you will ever see in your life. From that moment, engagement. How long was their engagement? 10 months. An engagement in Islam can be done in two ways. One way is mut'ah, temporary marriage. As soon as I said that, there's a mad silence that happened in the hall. It's okay. This all Islamic law. One way is temporary marriage, mut'ah. Another way is for an aqd, literal marriage contract to be done. Someone says, hold on. Let's rewind here, said Ammar. I get engaged. How do I get engaged? Because you know very well, if you propose to someone for marriage, and their dad, for example, says yes, You two now want to have coffee with each other, but you're not mahram to each other. No, said Ammar, you don't understand, bro. Say what? Said Ammar, her dad accepted. So, her dad accepted, but that doesn't make it legal. So how do we make it legal? Two options. One option is that we agree a temporary period of marriage. In English, we may call it an engagement period. That engagement period, what is it? The father, for example, will say that I want you to be engaged to my daughter in a temporary marriage. That temporary marriage may be 2 months. That temporary marriage may be 6 months. But that means that you and my daughter are halal to each other. But I can set conditions as to how halal to each other. I can set a condition. Someone says, no, I prefer that they just do nikah for the engagement, or they do the aqd for the engagement. The problem with aqd, contract for the engagement, what if the two of them split up after a week? Your daughter's divorced, having not even lived in the house. Your daughter is divorced. She's counted as a divorcee. Someone says, but what do you mean divorcee? They never even had a wedding. Yes, but you've done a marriage contract for the engagement. That means when it's broken, she's divorced. Why has your daughter got the label of divorce or divorcee when she hasn't even done what? She hasn't even had a wedding and lived with the person. In the Arab culture, normally the engagement is done as an aqd. In other cultures, normally a person will do the mut'ah. Someone says, well, why doesn't everyone do the mut'ah? Many do not do the mut'ah because of the stigma with the word mut'ah. Because the word mut'ah has a stigma, many fathers will not entertain it. Today, therefore, if your daughter is getting engaged, you as a father can turn around and say that what do I want? I want that there is a temporary period where you two can be halal to each other until the day of the wedding. How long should an engagement be? That varies. Some engagements could be 2.5 years. If you're at uni together, you met in the first year, you want to get married, but you can't afford, but you want to be halal to each other, maybe you might do engagement for 2 years. But sometimes a long engagement can also bring about difficulties. Imam Ali alayhi salam was engaged for 10 months to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, until eventually the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, said to him, are you ready now for marriage? He said to him, I am. He said to him, then let us agree the mahar, because we know that if there is going to be a contract in Islam, one of the main conditions of a Muslim wedding contract, be it temporary marriage or permanent marriage, is what? Is that the dowry has to be agreed. What is the mahar? He asked him, oh Ali, what can you give for your dowry? Please listen to this important point. This dowry is to provide a safeguarding and economic independence to the lady. That lady may not necessarily work. Her husband is the breadwinner. There is a certain dowry that is paid that is safeguarding her future as well. When he asked Imam Ali alayhi salam, what could you give for the mahar? Imam Ali turned around and he said, for example, I could give my sword, I could give my horse, I could give my armor, my shield. Look at Imam Ali alayhi salam. The gifts that he was giving for mahar were not cheap. They weren't cheap. The mahar of Fatima today in our marriage contracts is a very basic sum. People say, I want mahar of Fatima al-Zahra. But that's not the equivalent of what Imam Ali done. In other words, in reality, if you're just doing mahar of Fatima al-Zahra in exact similarity, what's that going to help the female in economic independence? Tomorrow a divorce happens. We know very well in Islam there is no alimony. Talaq happens. You may give alimony for the iddah period. You may give alimony for the period where she is pregnant in the after talaq. But then after that, that lady who has sacrificed everything all those years, looking after the children, bringing up the children, looking after your house, talaq is done, she goes, okay, so what's there to provide economic independence for her? The mahar of Fatima today, many of us have underestimated its importance. Imam Ali alayhi salam did not say, like today's money, 500 pounds. Imam said, whatever I own, I'm ready to give to Fatima. That's a certain sum. I have a sword, I have a horse, and I have a shield. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, as for your sword, use it, keep it for the protection of the religion. As for your horse, use it to earn an income. As for your shield, sell that shield. When he sold that shield, he got 500 dirhams. Today, you go to a nikah ceremony, and you hear people saying, and the agreed mahar is the mahar of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Mahar of Fatima, how much now? What, 700 pounds? 500 pounds? 800 pounds? So you've given now 800 pounds towards someone's daughter. What's going to happen? And mind you, I've heard some who are so cheap that they'll say, I'll only give you a talaq if you give me my mahar back. Relax, ya wallah, relax. She's been with you as a wife, and she's been a bedrock in your life, and you still want the mahar back. Muslims, when they get married, many of them act like humans. When they get divorced, they act like animals. Muslims, when they get married, you'll see a smile this wide. The moment they're about to get divorced, one of the two, if not the pair, become animals. The Quran said either come back with each other peacefully or divorce peacefully. We've left the Quran. Now all we see, give me my mahar. That's the only way I'll give you talaq. Baba, mahar wasn't for you to blackmail someone. Mahar was for you to provide some sort of security. Whereas for us, we've taken the mahar as what? Here, take this sum. Okay, one day she gets divorced. What's going to look after this girl? Who's going to look after this girl? The girl just goes out to work all of a sudden? Imam Ali alayhi salam, therefore, with Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, what was he ready to do? Whatever I have, Ya Rasulullah, I'm ready to give. I'm not just going to say, can I just give 500 dirham? No, no, no. My shield, if you want, sell it. My sword, I'm ready to sell. My horse, I'm ready to sell. I'm ready to give everything, Ya Rasulullah. At that moment, Rasulullah said to him, do not worry, give the shield. That is the mahar for Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Once that was agreed, then they came towards the wedding. Some of our traditions in wedding, some of them are culture. Some of our traditions in wedding are religion. There is no problem having culture in a religious wedding. No problem whatsoever. Listen, I've seen some baffling things in my life when I've done nikahs across the world. I done one wedding, I remember they were sprinkling something on the poor groom's head throughout the wedding. I didn't know what was going on. I've had others have to drink milk, touch milk, people throwing water on someone's face. This is not an issue. Culture within religious weddings, there's no problem. As long as the culture does not go outside of the boundaries of the religion of Islam. Because if a person now comes and says that, look, it's our culture back home to bring a DJ and so that we all dance to it, Habibi, keep that culture back home then, you know. Because someone must say, this is our culture. If we get a belly dance, it's our culture. We never said there's a problem with culture, unless culture breaks Sharia. Then there's only one winner, and that is what? And that is Sharia. Culture can be there. Baba, you want to bring biryani in your wedding, and you might want to bring quzi in your wedding, and you might want to, wallah, we don't mind those cultures. Someone comes and, for example, throws flowers. What's haram about throwing flowers on somebody? No problem. What if someone came to me and said, part of our culture in the wedding is that we have to walk in with our right foot before the left foot. I said, Habibi, walk in with any foot, you're more than well. Some of these cultures, there is no issue. Was there a culture to Rasulullah when he came for Imam Ali and Fatima Zahra's wedding? Yes. Rasulullah said to Fatima, come here. He sprinkled water on her face. And then he sprinkled some water on her hands and then on her back. And then some of the remaining water, he said to her, drink this water. He done the same for Imam Ali alayhi salam. And then he said to Imam Ali, drink this water. This was part of a culture. What else was culture? Walima. Many of us have a walima. What's a walima? Have a dinner so that the wedding guests are happy by the time they leave. Reality is that 99% of us, when we go to a wedding, are looking forward to the munch. True. About the guy who's getting married. I want to know, is it good food or not good food? I want to make sure by the time I leave, I'm full. There are certain people I've met, they starve themselves the whole day until the wedding. Say, Habibi, you really not going to eat the whole day? Nah, bro. Why? Bro, there's a wedding tonight. Okay, there's a wedding tonight, but what are you expected to do? It's only when you see the mountain called Everest on his plate that you realize that this person cares a lot about that food. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called Bilal. He said, Bilal, go and get some sheep. Bilal, go and get some barley. Bilal, make a walima so everybody eats at the wedding of Fatima and Ali. Therefore, likewise for us, when we come to our weddings, there is no harm. Your culture, put it in your wedding. Walima, put it in your wedding. Recital of Quran, put it in your wedding. All of these, therefore, took up the wedding. But is the wedding that which makes a marriage? No. There are many who have glorious weddings, but it doesn't make a marriage. What therefore makes the marriage? What makes the marriage with one another is when you have patience with one another in difficult times. When you go through trials and tribulations in difficult times. Did Imam Ali alayhi salam go through trials in his life, in his marriage? Yes, he did. Someone says, Imam Ali goes through trials? Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, to earn income, he used to go water. He was a water carrier. He would go and carry heavy amounts of water. Fatima al-Zahra at the same time used to grind corn. Fatima would grind corn to help her husband and the family make ends meet. She could have easily turned around and said, do you know whose daughter I am? I am the daughter of the Prophet. What do you mean you're making me work? Because there are some who will say these things. That what do you mean you're telling me to do this? You're right. Ladies, Muslim ladies in a marriage are not obliged to clean. They are not obliged to cook. They are not obliged to do a lot of things which husbands think they are obliged to. No. These things where a husband says, why are you not cooking or cleaning? A Muslim lady can charge for cooking and cleaning. By the way, don't get any ideas on this. Otherwise, you'll make all these guys bankrupt. But when it comes to working, maybe, the ends for them to meet, a mortgage has to be paid, a person finds an economic climate which is difficult. Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra found it hard to make ends meet. And Imam Ali found it hard to go and tell the Prophet that things were difficult. So what did Imam Ali used to do? He used to carry water. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam used to grind the corn. But they love the combination of supporting each other. There's no harm. I see my husband sweating and he's coming home with a lawful earning, that's enough for me. Until one day, he looked at her hand, he saw there were blisters all over her hand. He said to her, what are these blisters? She said, the grinding of the corn is hurting me. He said to her that your father has certain captives who have come from some battles. He said to her, then go towards your father. Ask him that one of these captives from war, why don't we get them to be one of the servants in our house? She would go towards her father. She'd sit next to him. She'd think about asking. She wouldn't ask. She'd come the next day. She wouldn't ask. Third time, she wouldn't ask. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, what's wrong? She said, you know what? I find it difficult to ask my father, knowing the pressures that my father is going under at the moment in Medina. At that moment, Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he told the Holy Prophet, peace be upon his family, that we're facing difficulties in our marriage life. My dear brothers and sisters, it's fine. Economically, not every marriage has to be keeping up with the Joneses. 1 year you may not go the same holidays that you want to go. The honeymoon that your friend has put on Facebook or Insta, wallah, sometimes the grass is green on the other side. I know it all looks rosy and they look like they're having the best Maldives honeymoon that anyone could ever have. Sometimes they could afford it, you may not. Don't compare your marriage to theirs. There are times where you need at that moment to support one another. So even Imam Ali alayhi salam went to Rasulullah, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa turned around. What did he say? He could have easily said, okay, you know what, you're my daughter, you're my son-in-law, I'm going to favor you. You know what he turned around and said? Ashab al-Suffa. Suffa was a ledge, an area where the poor would sleep in Medina. He said, they are more in need than you and Fatima. So I cannot give you two when there are some who need much more. At that moment, Imam Ali and Fatima Zahra turned around. They said, we are pleased with whatever you are pleased with. And that's where he came to Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. He said to her, oh Fatima, I will give you something better than a servant. And she said, what is it? He said that Jibreel taught me a tasbih. And this tasbih will be more helpful to you and your house than any new servant. What is it? 33 times Subhanallah. 33 times Alhamdulillah. 34 times Allahu Akbar. What do we call it today? The tasbih of who? Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. After Salah, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says that if a person recites the tasbih of my grandmother Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, as soon as they finish Salah, the fire of hell will never touch that person. Why the fire of hell? Isn't that a bit too much of a reward? Because most of us, when we finish Salah, we want to jump up and watch the game. True? As soon as I finish Salah, I want to go jump. I want to go and do something. It's very difficult to spend an extra couple of minutes when it comes to Salah. And I'll discuss this when I come to discussing Fatima al-Zahra's viewpoint on the power of Salah in the forthcoming lectures. So you found, therefore, look at the difficulty economically. Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra, economic difficulties, emotional difficulties. Is it easy to know that your husband's gone for war? Ask any Iraqi, ask a Syrian, ask an Afghan, ask those who have seen their husbands on the battlefield. You never know if he's coming back or not. Imagine your husband, Badr, Uhud, Khandaq, Khaybar, Hunain. Is it easy knowing your husband's gone to war? Emotionally, for some, it's difficult to see their husband even travel. Fatima's husband didn't just travel. Fatima's husband went to the middle of arrows in a battlefield. He only had to face pretty normal guys, you know, Marhab, Amr ibn al-Amari, not the bravest guys in the world. Fatima al-Zahra didn't turn around and say, why are you going to these battles? She actually said to him, I'll accompany you and support you in the battles. She came to the battle of Uhud, which by the way was her honeymoon. When someone wants to look for the nicest resort, no problem. Always remember that the lady you're honoring tonight, her honeymoon resort was Uhud. The battle of Uhud, Ali ibn Abi Talib had injuries all over his body. Everywhere on his body, Imam Ali had injuries. She would come to each injury and look after it, because she knew that she wanted to be a pillar for Ali, a source of strength for him. When we get married, our wives are a libas for us, and we are a libas for them. Hunna libasun lakum wa antum libasun lahunna. What does this mean? Libas is clothing. What does clothing do? Clothing beautifies me. So I beautify my wife beautifies me. Clothing protects me. I am the one who therefore protects my wife, and my wife is the one who protects me. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib sees in the middle of the battle, in the corner of his eyes, his wife sitting there, looking at his every move, being with him in his every moment. The moment he was injured, who was the first to run to his body? Fatima ran to his body. He had injuries because everyone left the Prophet at Uhud. He stood there with a few people at Uhud. At the end of that battle, Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, she's the one who came to him, my darling Abul Hassan. She came to him, and she already at that time, by the time of the Battle of Uhud, she's a mother, Imam al-Hassan, and then Imam al-Hussein. She had no problem whatsoever being a mother, supporting her husband, and also bringing up the children of that house. And not just bringing up the children of that house. The beauty about Imam Ali and Fatima Zahra, in tandem with one another, their example. This is vital. When they spiritually grew, they grew with each other. Not you go Hajj, you go Ziyarah, I'll stay. Why? Why? Why don't you go Ziyarah together as a husband-wife? How many times I've seen married couples, one of them goes mosque, the other staying at home. Why? What will the children think? The children will see the both of you, there's no connection. Mom's always going to Majalis, dad's at home. Dad goes Ziyarah, mom's at home. And not because if it's financial that you can't afford, no problem. But going to a Majlis is not financial. If the child sees that the mom is committed, but the dad isn't, then the child's thinking, hold on, if dad doesn't do it, why should I do it? Mom's the one who's doing all these things. Imam Ali and Fatima Zahra, everything they did in tandem with one another. That incident when they were making the fast because Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussein had fallen ill. That incident highlighted how connected the two of them were to each other. Why? Because they had said that we'll fast if Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussein recover. When they recovered, you all know the story. When they recovered, they're about to break their fast, a door is knocked. And when that door is knocked, what happens? Fatima Zahra, Imam Ali are in the house, they're about to break their fast. Both of them set an example in the house, not one of them. Today in some marriages, the father has no interest in spiritual development and the mother's running around teaching Quran. The mother's the one running around carrying people to Majalis. If that happens, then we've not understood the marriage of Ali and Fatima, of Khadija and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Those marriages, the two were spiritually growing. Another point, when you spiritually grow, you be patient with the one who isn't growing as fast as you. When you two got married, you were on the same level. One of you may have become more religious. At that moment, it's not the time to leave the marriage. It's the time to be patient with the other to develop. Sometimes today, you have some who reach a level of spirituality, but they don't help the other come up. They start being judgmental on the other. On the contrary, a person, when they spiritually grow with one another, there has to be sabr as well. If your wife is not as religious as you, don't start to make fun of her and judge her. Slowly, bring her closer with sabr, with patience. Imam Ali and Fatima, mubahala together. Incident of giving to the poor together. Incident of hadith al-kisa together. Every incident you find that the two of them are in tandem with one another. Spiritually, they grow together. Emotionally, they grow together. And he was very expressive. He expressed himself. He didn't say, I'm a man, I don't say such things. Today, a simple text message, I love you, simple. Even that has become difficult. Wallah, how technology has helped us now. We can just send an emoji and not even talk. In the past, you had to write. Now you could just show a yellow, someone who's, I don't know why the color is yellow of the person, of the emoji, smiling. That's it. Just a smile. That's all need to be sent. I'm thinking about you. I love you. I adore you. Imam Ali would write poems about Fatima while she's alive. Look at the words I said at the beginning of this lecture. When she died, look at his expression of love. Look at what he says. He says, Ya Rasulullah, I have returned the amana. He doesn't say I returned Fatima. I have returned the amana. I marry someone's daughter, she's an amana now. An amana, the sign of a mu'min, is that they look after their amanas. They don't beat them. If you beat your wife, then you've not understood the lady you've honored tonight, because you've become like the man who beat her. Someone who slaps their wife cannot be someone who has a problem with the killer of Fatima when they are someone who has engaged in a similar act. Imam said, I have returned the amana. O Prophet of Allah, you gave me an amana, and I've returned the trust. And the pledge has been taken back. Now listen to this line. My grief is forever. My grief is forever. al-Baneen, not enough. Look how great al-Baneen is. Not enough. Asma bint Umays, how great? Not enough. Khawla bin Ja'far, not enough. My grief is forever. You know, someone saw him years afterwards and they see him shed tears. Said, how many years have gone since she's died? Still? He said, how could you recover from losing Fatima? When do you see a Muslim man's expression that beautiful? My grief, this is him talking after she's died. He's talking to Rasulullah near his grave. My grief is forever, and my night is sleepless. I can't sleep. How can I sleep? And I saw her between a wall and the door. Nobody was as affected by this incident like the Amir, because Rasul had said to him, you have to remain patient. This is my wasiyah now. I want you to remain patient with what you're about to see. He said, my grief is forever, and my night is sleepless, until Allah chooses for me in the abode a place where you are residing. Then he says, he is the first to recite the musibah of Fatima. Who was the first to recite the masa'ib of Bibi Fatima? Imam Ali. What did he say? Your daughter will now tell you about the conspiracy of this ummah, pure tabarra. Just in case someone thinks Imam Ali had no tabarra against what happened, your daughter will now tell you about the conspiracy of this ummah and the way they repressed her. Therefore, Ya Rasulullah, ask her what happened. And let her tell you about the circumstances surrounding her death. Nothing broke his heart more than that day in Medina, because he wasn't in the house. He wasn't in the house when Fidda found out that Fatima had now died. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam said to Fidda, she said, I'm going to go and perform my ritual ablution, and then I'm going to go towards praying and reading the Quran. Come and ask for me. If I reply to you, that means I'm alive. But if I don't, that means I have passed away. Hassan and Hussein, when they come home, have their food ready for them. Have their food ready for them. She went, she got ready. Bibi Fidda alayhi salam, she left her until a few moments later. Fidda came and said, oh daughter of Rasulullah, answer me. No reply. Daughter of the man who ascended to the heavens. No reply. She knew at that moment that the time had come. She entered the room and she saw Fatima laying there on the bed. She called out, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Verily to Allah we belong, and verily to Allah we shall return. And that moment when she called out, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, there were two Imams in that house, yes? They came, she said, I prepare your food for you. They said to her, O Fidda, when have you known us to eat our food without our mother Fatima? They both ran towards the body of their mother Fatima, with Hassan sitting one way and Hussein the other. The news eventually reached where? Reached Medina. Ali ibn Abi Talib, how powerful and brave a man he is. The moment he heard the news, he fainted. He fainted. You know what happens to you? You remember the beginning of your story with your wife. You remember the night of Hijrah. You remember how she was a backbone to you. You remember how she treated your wounds, and you think, I couldn't treat your wounds. He came towards her. He took the body. That night when they done the ghusl, the narration comes to us from Asma bint Umays. You know what she says? She says, I saw Ali ibn Abi Talib. He was washing the body. I was with him. All of a sudden, he left the body. He went and sat in the corner of the room. I saw Mawla in a way I never thought I'd see him. His head between his knees. Just picture that scene. His head between his knees. He was crying and crying. I said to him, Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, what's wrong? Why do you cry in this way? You are the man who lifted Khaybar, but I see you broken. He said, Oh Asma, don't blame me. I just was washing the body and my hand came across the broken rib of Fatima. I want to ask him one line. I want to ask him one line. If one rib of Fatima broke your heart, all of you know where I'm heading. If one rib of Fatima broke your heart, what would you have done when you saw Hussein's ribs in Karbala? If one rib broke your heart, then what did those horses do to the ribs of your son on the plains of Karbala? What would have happened to your heart had you seen your son lay there on the ground? We lost one rib in Medina, but how many ribs went in Karbala? When he came near the grave of his wife, he called out, I have returned the trust and the pledge has come back. My grief is forever and my night is sleepless until Allah chooses for me in the abode a place where you reside. When he began to recite those lines, he slept near her grave. He loved her so much. He never wanted to leave her grave. That night in his dream, he saw her talk to him. What did she say to him? Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, return to the house. There are orphans alone in that house. When he returned back to the house, he saw Hassan and Hussein sleeping. But where was Zainab? He looked around the house, he saw Zainab on the prayer mat. She looked at him and said, Father, tonight. That Zainab, that night, she felt lonely. She broke the heart of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He started to cry when he saw her alone near the prayer mat. If that made you cry, then how about Zainab on Shaba Ghariba? Come to Karbala and see Zainab looking one side and the other, asking, where is Hussein and where is Abbas? Where are those men who were here to protect me? She heard a voice, oh Zainab, it's your father in front of you. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, raise us with Muhammad and Al Muhammad. Ya Allah, allow us to follow the example of the marriage of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib to Fatima al-Zahra alayhim as-salam. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the following marhumeen: Hatim Ali Shamalak, Mahfouza Hatim Ali, Sayyid Iftikhar Ahmed, Nawazish Fatima, Sayyid Muhammad Hassan Ja'fari. Ya Allah, raise them with Muhammad and Al Muhammad. There are those who are feeling unwell, others who are facing difficulties in their personal life, in their public life. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of us together raise our hands with the ayah of the Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ. Louder please. أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ. MashaAllah. أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ. أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ. أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. Ya Allah, allow our eyes one day to see the grave of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our Imam, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. We pray to Allah to raise us with the Imams of Ahl al-Bayt and to recite a Surah al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of your salawat.